Hey guys, how's it going? Jordan Locke here. We are continuing to cover the investigation of Nolan Wells' death. Nolan Wells, an 18-year-old guy who had just recently graduated high school, went out drinking with a couple of his friends on July 4th and ended up disappearing. And his body was found 2 days later on the island that he went to with his friends. We are continuing to cover this case, and I have an update based on publicly available information. So the police report that was filled out initially by Warren's friends is now available on the internet. Yes, this is the official police report. And let's just say we have a major discrepancy between what's in the police report and what Nolan's friends are saying happened on that fateful day of July 4th. So I want to get into this police report with you, cover some of this information that was taken in the police report, and then cover how this information is different than the information that Nolan's friend Warren gave us in his interview with Officer Tatum. So we're going to get into that in a little bit. But before we get into that, I wanted to talk about a lot of this crazy information, crazy speculation that's been going on the internet right now regarding the Nolan Wells case. I get it, guys. An 18-year-old guy died. We don't know how this guy died. His death is extremely mysterious, and some would even call it suspicious. I am among those people who would call it suspicious. I understand. Justice needs to be served. The investigation seems like it's really going nowhere. It's going really slow, and people want to see whatever happens to Nolan come to light. It's totally understandable. I'm with you guys. I'm 100% with you. But a lot of the nonsense that I see floating around in the internet is not helping the case, okay? It's doing more than not helping the case. It's actually hurting the case, okay? There's a lot of misinformation out there, a lot of AI pictures being generated, a lot of crazy stories that are coming out. One of them is that some girl apparently said that she was at a party with Nolan and Nolan's friends on July 4th, and that there was some massive pool party with a ton of people there. And apparently Nolan got into a fight with someone, and a bunch of kids were beating Nolan up, and people were recording it. And everyone started going crazy and saying, oh my God, this is a smoking gun. This is proof positive that, Nolan Wells was murdered, and, we have to follow this lead. And suddenly the person who posted this post on Facebook just completely disappeared off the face of the planet. That person's sister then came to Facebook and said that her sister had posted that. It was literally just rage bait. Her sister had no knowledge of what happened. Her sister didn't even have knowledge of Nolan Wells and Nolan Wells' friends. Okay, so that's just one example of the craziness that's been surrounding this case so far. There's another video that I saw floating around the internet recently that shows a group of guys, particularly a bunch of white guys, getting into a fight with a singular black guy who looked slightly like Nolan Wells and had blue shorts on. The shorts weren't the same color of shorts that Nolan Wells had on, but this group of white guys got into a fight with this black guy, and one of the bigger white guys picks this black guy up and throws him on the ground and slams him into the ground. Everyone saw this video and they started going nuts over this and saying, oh my God, once again, this is proof positive that Nolan was murdered. We know now this is the smoking gun. Police need to investigate this. All it took was a little bit of common sense to research the video to figure out that this had nothing to do with Nolan Wells. What happened in the video is certainly disturbing, I'll give you that much. But it wasn't related to this case. It wasn't related to Nolan Wells. If you freeze the video in several frames, the bottom of the video says Rosemary Beach. There is no Rosemary Beach in Mississippi. Nolan Wells disappeared and passed away in Mississippi. Rosemary Beach is in Florida. So this didn't even happen in the location or even near the location where Nolan Wells disappeared. So guys, we really have to stop with all of these crazy stories and wanting to believe anything that comes out. I understand the desire to want justice for Nolan, but we have to keep a cool and level-headed approach to this investigation to understand exactly what happened to Nolan. We're not helping Nolan by going crazy and running with all these bizarre stories that are circulating on the internet. And don't get me wrong, I bet some of the stories are out there to purposely get people off of the path of what happened to Nolan. I'm not saying some of them aren't, but we can't follow these crazy stories. We have to stick with the facts. We have to stick with what we know. Again, approach this with a level head. That is what is going to serve Nolan Wells and Nolan Wells' family the best in terms of finding out what actually happened to Nolan and getting Nolan the justice that he deserves. Now, the next thing I want to talk about are the rumors of racism circulating around the internet involving this investigation into Nolan Wells' death. Now, what do I believe? I don't believe that there was any premeditated situation that happened here with Nolan. I also don't believe that Nolan just happened to drunk drown on an island where there are over 1,000 people, over 1,000 teenagers and young people partying and drinking. Somebody would have seen it if something happened to Nolan. Somebody, at least one person would have seen it. What I believe is that one of two things happened. Either there was an accident and there is a cover-up going on as to what happened in that accident with Nolan, or I believe that Nolan could have gotten into a fight with someone. Maybe that fight had gone too far, and once again, we're back to a cover-up. I believe, based on the information that is publicly available, that there has 100% been a cover-up. People are covering up what actually happened to Nolan. Okay, so that's where I stand. Now, to call Nolan's friends racist is absolutely ridiculous. Okay, did Nolan's friends have anything to do with Nolan's death? We don't know yet. They may not have, they may have. Somebody, in my opinion, had something to do with Nolan's death. We don't know if it's the friends yet. We do know that some of the stories that are coming out from Nolan's friends, especially on the interviews with Officer Tatum, are a bit suspect, a bit fishy, and there are some inconsistencies, and we're going to address one of the major inconsistencies here in a little bit. No, I do not believe that Nolan's friends were racist towards Nolan. Do I believe that racism is involved in terms of the investigation into Nolan's death? Well, let's look at the history of Mississippi. Mississippi has quite a sordid past, okay, in the sense that there are more racially motivated deaths, or there have been more racially motivated deaths in the state of Mississippi than any other state in the country, okay? Mississippi has proven historically to be one of the most racist states in the country. And we've seen many cases in the past where Mississippi law enforcement takes cases that involve black people less than seriously, okay, to say the least. That is an objective fact. That's not opinion, that's fact. So do I believe that Nolan's race played a part in the lack of urgency in the investigation so far? Yes, I do. Why do I believe that? Because of the history of Mississippi and law enforcement in Mississippi when dealing with the deaths of black people. Do I believe that there is racism in the investigation? Absolutely. There is racism in the sense that Nolan's death is not being taken as seriously as it should be taken. Now, does the lack of racism on Nolan's friends exonerate his friends from what happened to Nolan? No, it doesn't. Okay? Once again, I'll reiterate what I said before. There was either an accident that happened, in my opinion, and his friends are trying to cover the accident up, or there was a fight that happened, a fight that may have possibly gone too far. Nolan passed away, and once again, his friends or another group of people are trying to cover it up. That's what my opinion is, okay? But I want to focus on this particular group of friends because the stories that they are telling don't seem to be very consistent. Now, on the flip side, there are many people who are just insisting that it had to be an accident. It had to be an accident. There's no way in the world that there could have been foul play involved. There's no way in the world that somebody could have been mad at Nolan or that he could have gotten into a fight and things may have gotten out of hand. There's no way that somebody may be covering up his death. That claim is just as ridiculous. There is no proof that Nolan's death was 100% accidental. The autopsies so far have been completely inconclusive. And I would argue that based on the information that we have so far, there are far too many holes in the stories that have been presented to us to conclude for any reasonable person with an iota of common sense or logic that Nolan accidentally drowned, okay? The fact that Nolan's friends happened to see him around 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon on July 4th, he said he wanted to stay on the island, and then suddenly Nolan isn't seen again, and mysteriously his body isn't on the island until 2 days later when his body supposedly shows up on shore, an area that Nolan's parents had already searched and didn't find his body. This, among many things, is way too suspicious. So there is no doubt in my mind, in my personal opinion, that something happened to Nolan. So that's where I stand on the investigation into Nolan Wells' death so far. I think we need to give it time. I think we need to keep a cool, rational, and level head about this. The truth will come out, guys. Make no mistake about it, okay? If something is being kept from the public, It is going to come out. It's only a matter of time. Cover-ups almost never succeed, okay? There are too many people involved. There are too many moving parts. Whether it's Nolan's friends who are covering it up or another group of people who are covering it up, the truth is going to be exposed. We need to approach this rationally. Stop believing every little picture that comes out on the internet, every little video that surfaces. The truth is going to come out. Okay, guys, so let's talk about this official police report that has been released and is now available as a public record. This is the official sworn police report of the MDMR Marine Patrol. This report is dated 7/5/2026. I would urge you to search for it and look through the report yourself. The name listed in this report is Bart Edmonston. Bart Edmonston, as we know, as you should know if you've been following this case, is a friend of Warren. We don't know if Bart was friends with Nolan. We know that they were acquaintances and that they knew each other and that they went to school together. But it seems from all accounts that Bart is actually friends with Warren, as Warren has repeatedly stated in the many interviews that came out with Officer Tatum a few days ago regarding this entire Nolan Wells situation. And if you go through this report, it has an official timeline as to everything that was reported to law enforcement in terms of the GPS coordinates of the boat, in terms of what Nolan's friends told police. And that is where there is a discrepancy in this report, right? So if you go through this report is 15 pages long. On the third page of the report, you'll find a description that has been written in by law enforcement based on conversations that they had with Nolan's friends. So let's read through the relevant portion of this police report that directly conflicts with what Warren has stated in the Officer Tatum interviews. On Saturday, July 4th, 2026 at 23:49 hours, Mississippi Department of Marine Resources, MDMR, Lieutenant blank blank, was advised by dispatch of a caller reporting a missing male, Nolan Wells, on Horn Island. The caller told dispatch her 18-year-old son rode to Horn Island on a vessel with friends, was last seen around 1500 hours, his phone was in a friend's truck, and all the friends said they had returned from the island. Based on the information provided at the time, Blank asked dispatch to forward the reporting party, Christina Wells Wansley, who happens to be Nolan's mother, to Jackson County Sheriff's Office, JCSO, to make an official missing persons report. Shortly thereafter, dispatch advised the reporting party was calling JCSO and that the United States Coast Guard had been notified. This is the crucial part right here. At approximately 01:38 hours on July 5th, 2026, Blank spoke with Ocean Springs Police Department regarding the complaint and advised the JCSO would be taking lead on the case. Blank also spoke with JCSO Lieutenant Blank, the shift supervisor, who said they had taken the initial report. He said his deputies had spoken with several friends that traveled to the island on the vessel with Nolan, and that when they left, he was in the company of an unknown female, and that he chose to remain on the island. Based on the information provided, Blank did not have a reason to believe that there were any water-related exigencies or emergencies that he believed the most likely scenario was Nolan rode in on another vessel, but he did not have his phone in his possession to make contact with his family. No further action was taken by Blank or his shift the morning of July 5th, 2026. The crucial part that I want to focus in on is in that paragraph, where it states, he said his deputies had spoken with several friends that traveled to the island on the vessel with Nolan, and that when they left, he was in the company of an unknown female. Why did Nolan's friends say that Nolan was in the company of an unknown female? This is a problem because in the interviews with Warren and Officer Tatum, Warren states repeatedly, several times, that he knew who this female was. He knew that the female was Katie.
The last time I saw Nolan was 3 o'clock, and Nolan was cradling a girl in his arms, Katie, Katie. And Katie, Nolan was sitting there, and the last time I saw him, I looked at Nolan, and Nolan was like shaking his head, laughing, and I was like, dude, you crazy.
Katie is a girl who, it's well known in this case, Nolan was speaking with and hanging out with that day on Horn Island. So if you know that Nolan was hanging out with Katie, why did you guys report that female as an unknown female? It says here that Nolan's friends reported this female as an unknown female. They knew who this female was. In fact, Warren states in the interview that he was texting with Katie that same night to find out what happened to Nolan. He says that there are texts that exist and that he has screenshots of the texts and that he was talking with Katie through text to find out what exactly happened.
And I heard the girl that he was with, Katie, had text somebody
Yeah.
that she heard people yelling
Correct.
for Nolan to get on it. Is
Yeah,
that
yeah.
true?
And I have a picture of that. She texted my buddy, and the next day everybody was panicking and everybody's texting Katie, you know, because she was obviously seen with Nolan the whole day at the island. The next day everybody was panicking and everybody's texting Katie, you know, because she was obviously seen with Nolan the whole day at the island. Katie sent a message to my buddy the next day and said, you know, this is the last time I saw him, you know, he's really sweet. But she also mentioned that the last time she saw Nolan was when my buddy was yelling at him to get on the boat.
This is one of many inconsistencies that cause me to believe that there are problems with the stories of the friends. There is no reason to mislead law enforcement and tell them that you don't know the girl when you know the girl. Why would you need to mislead law enforcement? And this is the kind of thing that I'm really hoping that Mississippi law enforcement focuses in on. Guys, I'm going to continue covering this case. Like I stated before in the previous video, I'm sure everybody wants to see justice for Nolan, or at least people with a heart want to see justice for Nolan. Nolan Wells is dead, and Nolan Wells cannot speak for himself anymore. He can't tell us what happened. So it's up to people who are asking questions, who want this investigation to go on, who are pushing people to dig into this situation to get answers for Nolan's family to find out what happened to Nolan. So we're going to keep on questioning. We're going to keep on trying to dig into this. We're going to keep on asking the questions to find out what exactly happened to Nolan Wells. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one.